Fresh from the showcase here at SwissWatchExpo, I'm with Blake. We're here to talk about the Railmaster, part of the Seamaster line of Omega watches, which is an interesting thing. One of his favorite watches is the 57 Railmaster, and I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I really love this piece. This is just a great everyday watch that I think can be worn. There's no high polish finish on it or anything like this. And this here Railmaster 57 is an homage to one of the original watches Omega made. They're anti-magnetic up to 15,000 gauss model, which was a huge innovation at the time. I believe one of the first 2 or 3 anti-magnetic watches of that caliber that's ever been produced, which is interesting that they're now doing this homage piece because Omega has been incorporating this technology into a lot of their other watches too. A lot of the Seamaster and Aquaterra line starting to come with anti-magnetic capabilities now. And so this piece was one of the original ones that did it. It's a really beautiful watch. It has the sort of matte black finish, which actually has sort of like a teakwood pinstriping finish on it.
The dial.
Yeah, the dial is really one of the most stunning pieces. It looks like a matte finish at first, but then when the light catches it, I don't know if you could see that, you get so many tones of silver and gray in there, and against the matte finish of the brown on the luminous markers. These markers are actually luminous,
right?
Which is surprising because of this brown color, but really gives it a great vintage classic feel in what is a very modern production version of this watch.
So the individual markers are antique to look a little bit older. The dial has that brushed satin finish, and to my eyes, we were talking about this earlier, it's a black dial and it does have a silverish gray look because it has sort of striations in it, but in my eyes, because it has the anti-reflective coating on the crystal, it almost looks blue at times, which is very interesting. It's really a great looking watch, and of course the Railmaster line and eventually the Aquaterra line, by the way, these two are, I'm not sure I would say they were sister and brother per se, but they're pretty close. The casings are very, very similar. The water resistance value of them are very similar. And the interesting thing about the Railmaster was, in the 1850s, this was a pocket watch by Omega, and Omega named it the Railmaster because they were originally used for train conductors to make sure that they were keeping on time, which is something we're going to talk about here in just a second with the Chinese railroad piece. So you've got another, you've got another piece that you like over here with the white dial.
This is another similar line. This one here is an Aquaterra chronograph GMT, and I just love this watch because if you're looking for a do-it-all dive watch that can literally take care of just about any function you could need, it's great. It's got the extra GMT time zone, it's got a chronograph movement, and it's just an enormous thick case here housing all of these complications, which I just love. It also has sort of the pinstripe teakwood looking finish, which is emblematic of the Aquaterra line. So many people confuse this for Planet Ocean because of the size, but this is actually an Aquaterra chronograph GMT, which I really love if you're looking for a great do-it-all sports watch. I think this is definitely a good candidate.
And really interestingly too, I think the most important thing about this watch is that each one of the hour indicators is done in sort of a 3D effect. That dial, the depth of the dial inside the case versus the indicators on the dial versus, as you said, that teakwood finish striation on the dial, everything comes together to give it a very textured feel. It doesn't feel flat and monotone like so many white-faced watches do. This one has depth. No matter how you look at it, no matter what angle you look at it, I can see so much detail on this. It does have the 24-hour outer bezel. It's designed, again, as he said, like the Seamaster Planet Ocean. It's a very significant piece. So the Railmaster, it's odd because you would, on a Seamaster line, why is it Seamaster? You know, it's like you don't drive trains underwater, so what do we need the Railmaster and Seamaster combined name for? Well, the reality is that the Seamaster line of watches was really just a whole conglomeration of things. That's why now we have the Aquaterra as part of the Seamaster line too. Yeah. So it's sort of all just encompassed together. It's sort of like Breitling, Land, Air, and Sea. They have some watches in there and you go, wait a minute, the Navitimer is the air watch, then we have the Super Ocean. How does that combine with what's going on with the original Navitimer and the idea of flight? Well, there's all kinds of things, exploration, that kind of thing. And by the way, this has turned into sort of the same thing as a Aquaterra, whereas we have a combination of explorer, submariner, that type of thing. So it all comes together in the end. Now, two very important pieces. These enormous, what look like pocket watches on your wrist.
Indeed.
These are manual wind watches. Both of these have the crystal case back in them, and I always struggle because they're on a strap to be able to show you what the inside looks like. Extraordinarily decorated. Now, the original idea behind why these are so large, people in the early days men didn't wear wristwatches. Ladies were the first ones to wear wristwatches. A lot of people didn't realize that. They were very, very tiny. Men struggled to get out of the pocket watch age.
Yeah.
What wound up happening is, out of pure necessity, they started putting straps on pocket watches. Pocket watches weren't always 56, 58 millimeters. Sometimes they were 46, 48, 49. So they would weld little wires on the outside and then put a leather strap on it and literally wear it on their wrist. So I'm going to take my watch off here. This is actually a 44 millimeter that I'm wearing. So we're going to go to a 50 millimeter, which would be the size of a pocket watch. And now you can see how clear that is and how huge that looks on my wrist. And I wear a watch, my wristband is between 7.5 and 7.75, so I'm considered to have a large wrist. Imagine somebody who had a smaller wrist that wears something like a 7-inch circumference bracelet, right?
Well, no trouble reading that dial.
No trouble reading this dial whatsoever, but that's right, because the lighting conditions and things like that made it hard to see the dials. And back then, the luminosity, they didn't have the paint that glowed until much later. So it was something that they needed to be able, in low light conditions, to read very, very quickly. And as a matter of fact, when you're a trained conductor, I'm sure that happens more often than not, right?
I'm sure it would be helpful.
So we do have the Railmaster and just the plain Seamaster version of this. There are distinctions, but they look almost identical with the exception of the dials. And there's another piece here at the Chinese Railroad.
It's a very interesting watch.
Yeah. In 1878, the Chinese decided that they were going to issue Omegas to all trained conductors throughout China as their official timekeeping device. And that's why this is the special edition Chinese Railroad. And it even has the map of China on the back of it engraved. It's really cool. It also has a unique color, this orangey yellow significance colors, right? They still use Omega in the Chinese Railroad today as their official watch. In the early days, the Chinese Railroad was a private division. Now it's part of the government. But during the switchover, when it became part of the government, they still managed to keep the Omega as their timekeeping device. That's why it's an important piece in history. When a lot of people look at this watch, they aren't really sure why this watch exists. And by the way, it's a very limited number. We have all of these watches and more here at SwissWatchExpo. Find us at SwissWatchExpo.com. Give us a call. We have a lot to tell you about Omegas.